Good evening, East Alabama. This is the Locker Room, and I'm Namath Pitts. Today we're going to continue to look at scores from yesterday here in East Alabama for baseball and softball. We're also going to have a guest in studio. His name is Joe Medley from EA Sports Today, where we're going to break down the Calhoun County softball tournament. We're going to talk about where things are right now in baseball, and then we're going to take a look at the soccer, track and field, and golf county championships that are next week as well. Before we get into the locker room, I want to remind you to hit that like and follow button on our East Alabama Now page so that you don't miss the locker room. We're here every weekday, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. We cover all local sports here in East Alabama, whether it's highlights, interviews, previews, whatever it is, latest up-to-date news, we have it right here at East Alabama Now. We started a new segment, basically our scoreboard segment, where we bring you scores from the previous day, of course, if action takes place. Today, it's been very rainy, so a lot of the action tonight has been washed due to the weather. But needless to say, we do have our scoreboard from yesterday. You saw the highlights yesterday of Dalton Turner's Pleasant Valley Raiders and Coach J.D. Phillips' Welborn Panthers. So we're going to talk more about that game in just a minute. But let's go ahead and go to our baseball scoreboard, and let's start with Donahoe. The Falcons have been a little inconsistent in Class 2A so far. They played yesterday against West Point, and Donahoe lost to the Class 5A team out of Alberta as they fell to West Point 10-1. Blake Sewell had two of the Falcons' only 5 hits in the game. He hit a triple. Peyton Webb, Marcus Lawler, and Kai Keckler each got a hit for the other 3. But it was Webb who scored the team's lone run. But Coach Steve Gendron's team loses to West Point 10-1 as Donahoe falls. Moving forward, you saw highlights of this game yesterday between Dalton Turner's Pleasant Valley Raiders and J.D. Phillips' Welborn Panthers. Coach Phillips and the Panthers jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first inning. But John Garrett Bryant, Holt Bentley, Samuel Duncan all got 2 hits apiece. Bentley drove in 2 of the 5 runs for the Raiders as they came back to defeat Welborn 5-4. Samuel Duncan pitched a complete game for the Pleasant Valley Raiders. He allowed 3 hits, 2 earned runs, walked 7, and struck out 3. For Welborn, they put 4 runs on the board. It was Sean Perez and Brennan Talley who each had 2 RBIs, while Liam Avery, Zachary Presley, and Tanner Ingram each had a hit for the Panthers, but Dalton Turner's team gets the 5-4 win. Speaking of Dalton Turner's team, they went 2-0 yesterday at Choccolocco Park in the Spring Break Experience Tournament as they defeated Weaver 7-1 in their second game on the signature field. Noah Johnson drove in 3 of the 7 runs for Pleasant Valley. Johnson finished 2 for 3 with a double in the win. Pleasant Valley was led by Wesley Wheeler on the mound. He pitched 5 1/3 innings. He allowed 3 hits, no earned runs. That 1 run that Weaver scored was an unearned run. He walked 6, struck out 7. Brody Barnwell pitched the remainder of the game. He allowed only 1 hit for the Raiders. John Garrett Bryant, who had a good game against Welborn, continued his good play against Weaver. Him and Logan Williams both finished 2 for 3, with Bryant hitting a triple and scoring twice. Holt Bentley drove in 2 runs, hit a double. And for Weaver, their only run came from Kel Fulmer, who got a hit and drawed 2 walks. Tucker Michaels, Hayden Heiss, and Connor Hyatt all had a hit for Weaver, but the Pleasant Valley Raiders got the win 7-1. Coach Blake Jennings' team played the defending team that was in the state championship. That's right, Vincent played for a state championship a year ago, and White Plains dropped its first game of the day to Vincent. Vincent played in the 2A state championship a year ago. They're ranked 4th in the current 2A polls, according to the Sports Writers Association. For White Plains, Ashton Wallace went 2 for 4 in the loss. Paul Lobby hit a double. Dalton Luker hit a triple. Coleman Ray had a hit, and Cooper Tenney had the team's only RBI. But it was all Vincent as the Jackets defeated White Plains 9-1. But Blake Jennings' team would respond to that 9-1 loss with a dominating 13-3 win over Welborn. That's right, White Plains got the win over Welborn, and we said his name all year long, Cooper Tenney. He had 5 RBIs and it was a 5-inning win. White Plains won in 5 innings. Cooper Tenney went 2 for 3 with a run. Ashton Wallace had 2 RBIs of his own. Paul Lobby and Braxton Curls each had 2 hits. They hit a double. Welborn, Brennan Talley had a good game against Pleasant Valley. He continued that. He went 2 for 2 against White Plains with a double, scored twice, drove in a run. Zach Presley had a hit and an RBI for the Panthers. J.D. Phillips' team goes 0-2 yesterday. White Plains goes 1-1. Both teams back in action. White Plains was supposed to play tonight against Hoax Bluff. Weather was a factor. For J.D. Phillips' team, they'll be back on the field tomorrow against Deschler. All right, let's look at Alexandria. This is the final game of our scoreboard. They are down in South Alabama this week, playing down towards Baldwin County and the beach. For Alexandria, it was a rude start to spring break. Faith Academy drilled Alexandria 13-3. Ian Cartwright had a good day at the plate. He went perfect at the plate, actually, but it did not matter because it was all Faith Academy. Cartwright finished 3 for 3. He had 3 singles, scored a run, drove in a run, but it was a 6-inning road loss for Alexandria down at Faith Academy. Evan Snow and Eli Barnes each had an RBI for the Valley Cubs, but this game was over before it started as Faith Academy won 13-3. All right, that is our scoreboard for baseball yesterday. Again, spring break in full effect for Calhoun County teams. We've got Alexandria down at the beach. We got Pleasant Valley down playing in South Alabama at the beach. And then we got a couple teams playing right here at Chockalacca Park. But when it comes to softball, again, we just mentioned it, PV's down at the beach. For softball, Alexandria girls are down at the beach. But there's a big tournament at Jacksonville State University this week. So let's go ahead and go back to our scoreboard. But let's go look at some softball scores this time. Let's start with Coach Hess and the Alexandria Valley Cubs. Again, they went down south. They were at the Gulf Shore Sports Complex yesterday down in Robertsdale. And Alexandria went 2-1 on the day. This team right here, you may not be familiar with their logo, but that is Columbia Central out of Tennessee. So they must be on spring break, making the trip from Tennessee to South Alabama. For Alexandria, 2 Valley Cubs hit a home run. They got the win. Christian Hess and Presley Slayton were the ones that got the home runs. They both finished with a pair of RBIs. Brindley Sparks also drove in 2 runs, hit a triple. Slayton pitched all 3 innings of the contest, allowing 3 hits, 1 earned run while walking 2 and striking out 7. So Alexandria won 8-1 in their first game. They won 11-6 in their second game against another team from Tennessee. That is Oakland, the Patriots, Oakland, Tennessee. Brindley Sparks had a perfect day at the plate against Oakland as Alexandria got their second win on the day. Sparks went 3 for 3 in the victory, driving in a team-high 3 earned runs, scored twice. Clancy Bryant and Charlie Paris each finished with 2 hits and 2 RBIs apiece. And Christian Hess went 2 for 3 with a double and an RBI as Alexandria got their second win on the day. Unfortunately for Coach Hess's team, though, they could not go 3-0 on the day as they lost 3-0 to 7A's Enterprise. That is a 7A team in Enterprise. Clancy and Briley Bright each had 2 hits apiece. Alyssa Hunt and Jill Cockrell each had 1. After 1 inning of work from Reese Carr that saw her allow just 3 hits and 1 earned run, Presley Slayton pitched the remaining 4 2/3 innings, allowing 3 hits and 1 earned run while walking 3 and striking out 8, as Enterprise got the win over Alexandria by a score of 3-0. Speaking of playing teams from Tennessee at the beach, Pleasant Valley decided to do the same thing. This is Coach Bryant's team, and they went head-to-head with, that is not White Plains, that is McNary Central out of Tennessee. McNary Central, Tennessee got the win over Pleasant Valley 3-0. The Raiders started out their stay at the Gulf Coast Classic with a tough loss. Not a lot to talk about this one. Things did not go well for Pleasant Valley. Lily Henry, Madison Cromer, and Gracie Ward each had a hit, but ultimately they fell 3-0, and it was a bad day for Pleasant Valley. That trend continued in their second game when they played Class 6A Spanish Fort. And again, not a lot to talk about in this one. Madison Cromer hit it. She got herself a hit. She hit the team's only RBI. Alexa Cramner scored the only run. And Cramner, Gracie Ward, Lily Robinson, and Haley Lee each had a hit, but 6A Spanish Fort drilled Pleasant Valley 8-1. And they unfortunately went 0-3 on the day as they fell to Houston Academy out of Class 4A. Pleasant Valley dropped a tough one. Gracie Ward had the only hit. They only scored 1 hit in this game. And that 1 hit ended up being their only run that was on an error in the top of the second. 8th grader Abigail Evans scored the team's 1 run on an error, but it was only 1 hit. Houston Academy 1 hits Pleasant Valley as they got the win 13-1. All right, that was the action at the beach. Let's look at the action at Jacksonville State's Jana McGinnis Field. Spring Garden and Ohatchee went head-to-head, Coach Poe's team. They ended up falling, though. The Spring Garden opened up with a win in the tournament over Ohatchee. Not a lot went the way for Ohatchee deep. Spring Garden continued to add. Ohatchee could not keep up. as Spring Garden got the win over Coach Poe's team 4-3. Ohatchee would end up splitting their second game. Yes, this is a tiebreaker. It did indeed end in a tiebreaker. It took 5 innings, but these two tied at 2-2. Brianna Martin had 2 of Ohatchee's 4 hits. She hit a triple. Gracelyn Reed drove in both of Ohatchee's 2 runs. Reed and Mackenzie Luna each had 1 hit. For Jacksonville, Coach Ashley's team, Jehanna Ingram and Keasia Williams each had a hit, while Jalen Huntley drove in a run. In terms of pitching, 2 teams that pitched pretty well. Ohatchee's Michaela Brackett pitched all 5 innings for Ohatchee, allowing 2 hits. No earned runs. Jacksonville's 2 runs were unearned runs. And then Tia Evans pitched all 5 innings for Jacksonville, allowing 4 hits and 2 earned runs while walking 3 and striking out 1. So Jacksonville tied against Ohatchee. They tied against the Hornets of Ider as that game ended in a 5-5 tie. The second tie of the day for Jacksonville. Jehanna Ingram led the Golden Eagles offense in the tie, going 3 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Alexis Phillips led Jacksonville with 2 RBIs, while Daylon Wood and Tia Evans also had one of their own. Lacey Barnes scored twice for Jacksonville as the Golden Eagles tied Ider 5-5. All right, that is our scoreboard for softball. So I think that about gets us up to speed on everything that took place yesterday. So with that being said, I'm going to catch my breath for a minute. When we come back, we're going to be joined in studio by Joe Medley from EA Sports Today, where we're going to talk more about baseball and softball as we continue on the Locker Room, presented by Ted's Floors and Beyond.
Elevating or even creating an outdoor living space, whether it be for grilling, lounging, playing, entertaining, or just winding down, our quality tile and stone combined with our expert craftsmanship will no doubt create unforgettable outdoor moments with family and friends, while also enhancing the beauty and value of your home. Call us today.
We live in a world that moves quickly, and while we are able to connect faster than ever through technology, maybe you've noticed that real connection is hard to come by. Parker Memorial Baptist Church offers you a place to connect, a place to learn more about Jesus and the difference He can make in your life, a place to build relationships with like-minded believers, or maybe discover what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. A place to use the gifts and talents God has given you. A place where we love God and we love you. Parker Memorial Baptist Church, 1205 Quintard Avenue, Anniston. Visit our website for details.
Ted's Floors and Beyond brings you the Locker Room each and every day. Ted's Floors and Beyond has all your flooring needs, whether it's hardwood, laminate, carpet, tile, or luxury vinyl. They have it for you right there at Ted's. You can go by their showroom there in Anniston and you can pick out what you like, want, and need, and they can do that there at Ted's. Also, they've got their partnership with Welburn Cabinet and will offer you a complete kitchen or bath makeover. That includes cabinets, countertops, flooring, backsplashes, tile showers. They can get it done there at Ted's Floors and Beyond, and now they offer you work on your outdoor space, whether it's an outdoor kitchen, patio, or living space. They have specially made outdoor tiles and stones that can enhance your outdoor experience. Go by and see them today at their showroom in Anniston on Highway 431, right before you get to Sachs Elementary School, or visit them online at shopteds.com. That is shopteds.com. Ted's Floors and Beyond brings you the Locker Room. We continue on the Locker Room. We are now joined by probably one of the best people you're going to meet in this area, period, when it comes to media, and that is Mr. Joe Medley of EA Sports Today. So, Joe, first of all, thank you for taking time to join us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody knows Joe. I mean, Joe, you have been a staple for sports in East Alabama for, I don't want to make you feel old, but
27 years now.
Older than I've been alive. So you've been doing it top notch here in East Alabama. And we brought Joe on today because Joe gets a little more insight on things, not necessarily that we do. We're a lot of video highlights and stuff, but he's more in depth on the actual what's taking place in the game, talking to coaches, players, so he can give us some in depth about a couple teams. Calhoun County softball tournament coming up next week. Joe, next week's actually going to be really busy. You got the golf championship.
I'm trying to catch extra naps this week.
The rain's helping you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you got Calhoun County golf next week, Calhoun County track next week, Calhoun County soccer next week, and you got the Calhoun County softball tournament next week, all in 1 week. And you're a one-man team, so
Yes.
explain to
A
me.
pain you know well.
yeah. Explain to me how you're going to get it all done next week.
Well, when it's all going on at the same time, you can't. Everything matters, and sometimes you just have to make a call on what matters most, and you have to physically be there and find some other way to get the other stuff covered remotely.
Yeah, some good news for us though, and I'm sure we'll be together at every place next week, is you got golf championship on Tuesday. You got the track on Wednesday, so then now we just got to figure out soccer and softball, of course, on Thursday, Friday, which no disrespect to soccer, but of course I would lean probably the softball championship. Hopefully Nathan and Ashley will help me out if we come into that situation and they'll go cover soccer for us. But Joe, let's just kind of talk about baseball first. The county tournament's already come and gone for that. Oxford won in extra innings. But kind of looking down the stretch, Calhoun County this week, a lot of teams are on spring break playing, whether it's Alexandria down at the beach, or you got a lot of teams playing at Choccolocco Park. Kind of looking at things right now, let's start with Oxford. Obviously, it looks as if Hartselle is going to be the biggest thorn in their side if they have one down the stretch. How would you kind of assess where they're at in the season so far?
I got a lot of guys back from last year. They lost a lot from last year. Obviously, 9 seniors, and 5 of those were college signees. But they do have a lot of guys back, led by Carter Johnson, obviously the Alabama signee, and some other college signees. When it's all said and done, I think that state championship team last year is going to have 11 signees from what signed last year and this year. It's just insane, the talent that came through Oxford in this cycle. But the biggest question mark for Oxford thus far has been pitching depth. Obviously, they lost Peyton Watts, they lost Hayes Harrison, Mr. Baseball, Gatorade Player of the Year. Eli Bozeman's out with a back injury, and he's not going to be back. And so they're trying to bring some younger ones along, and I think their postseason fortunes probably depend on somebody developing that way. And because eventually in the playoffs, it didn't happen last year. They swept through the playoffs last year, but eventually most of the time you're going to face a game 3.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when you got Hartselle, but you may even run to potentially a Mountain Brook before that, who's a really good team as well. Another team that I think a lot of people believe in, and I certainly believe in, is Zach Welch and the Alexandria Valley Cubs. And they're just now getting Allen back, who's been injured, and I believe he's supposed to be on the mound against Saraland, from what I understood, from what I was told. So this is a team though that's kind of been like this. Been kind of like this most of the season. Been a roller coaster. Been up and down, up and down. But you got to believe when you're talking about pitching depth and pitching needed, they've got to certainly have 3 guys that could carry them to the state championship, right?
If you could put them and Oxford together right now, you might have a 7A champion. I really believe that. But yeah, they have the pitching depth. It's going to take a little while for Andrew Allen to kind of stretch himself back out and get him to the form he was going into the preseason. But this is a guy that 2 years ago had a no-hitter going into the last batter of the county championship against a lineup like Oxford had. He's an Arkansas State signee, so you know he can get it done once he's back full go. And Tripp Patterson, my gosh, you won't see a better game pitched than what he pitched against Oxford in this year's county championship game. He's pretty special. They have the depth there. Their thing is kind of the opposite side of that is getting the runs. They're not a team that's going to just knock the ball over the fence. They're going to get their singles, get their doubles, put the ball in play, and be aggressive on the base paths. I like, after they lost that county championship game where they, had the 2 guys thrown out at home. I love that Zach Welch kind of channeled Dan Campbell and talked about, being all gas and no brakes. That's what they have to be. They have to try to roll the dice and get those runs home to back up that pitching.
Yeah. So Joe, we could find ourselves at Jack State, just next month, looking at Oxford potentially in the 6A championship, Alexandria potentially in the 5A championship, and you could definitely say Piedmont. You got to love what Matt Dearman's team does, and this is probably not the most talented team he's had, and he's told me that personally. But it's more this team's bought in really hard to what he's trying to sell to them this year, and this is a team that was above Decatur Heritage in the latest ASWA sports rankings, the first one of the season. So for Matt Dearman's team to get over Decatur Heritage, because that's who they're going to have to go through, I think it's like you talk about every year in football. All right, Fife and who else? Fife and who else? They're going to meet. Piedmont's going to meet Decatur Heritage. How are they going to get past Decatur Heritage and find themselves competing for another state championship?
Well, it's same as we were talking about with Oxford. Just some things have to develop. They had some things to replace this year. Obviously, you lose somebody like Jack Hayes, who was both a stick and an arm. You got to find a way to replace that, and that's something that has to develop through the course of the season. I kind of see them as a team, like we were talking about with Alexandria earlier. They have to kind of manufacture the runs a little bit more this year than they have in the past. But look, they're a team that you can count on a certain level of success every year. You can. I would be stunned if they don't end up in at least the quarterfinal round.
Yeah.
That's just the kind of program they develop there, and they're always a threat to get there to the final round.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of other teams that are really good. I don't want to discredit them by saying they can't make a state championship run, but a couple teams that are good teams, like for Jacksonville, for instance, as a team, Coach Edwards' team, they are supposed to start area play with Cleveland County tonight, but I'm pretty sure the rains probably washed that away. So they're supposed to host a doubleheader on Thursday. We'll see how they readjust all that. But this is a team that's won that area. Cleveland County, certainly not a bad team. You got to think Blake Jennings' team is very much improved in his first season. I mean, Braxton Curls, Cooper Tenney, Aiden Kilgore have been really good for them on the mound. So looking at this area with Jacksonville, Cleveland County, White Plains, and Anniston, who's got 2 wins on the season, beat Sachs twice. When you look at this area, what do you think separates one from another right now?
I just think Jacksonville right now is probably a little bit ahead of the rest of the pack, just because obviously White Plains is learning under Blake Jennings in his first year there, and I think those two are kind of the head and shoulders. And well, I say that Cleveland County probably is another one I should mention there is being pretty strong. They got a couple of college signees playing for them. So, and I spoke a little too fast there. I'm trying to speak as fast as you read that thing on the floor there. But yeah, that's. I think Jacksonville's probably the team to beat there, and then it's kind of Cleveland County and White Plains next after that. Anniston's obviously improved this year, and it's good to see because you would think a school that has the athletes they have, could also be good in baseball, and if that program got a little TLC,
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And you got to give credit to the coach, though. He's kind of went in and bought into the program when nobody else really would. And so Anniston's improved. I certainly agree with you. I think Jacksonville's probably a step ahead of them, just not a big step, but they're a step ahead of them right now. I think White Plains and Cleveland County are going to, obviously battle for the 2-3 right there. But I think Cleveland County is very talented, but I think you need to keep an eye on White Plains because I certainly think they can turn some heads. Let's kind of shift to 2A. Let's just start Donahoe and Pleasant Valley. Collins will put it to both of them. So Collins was the area champions. Last year, Donahoe won this series, but Pleasant Valley did take the third game. Dalton Turner's team certainly improved this season. I seen them yesterday at Chocolaga Park. They're trying to clean things up. Can Pleasant Valley knock off Donahoe? I'm not asking you to make a prediction, but looking at these two, because they're meeting to determine who's going to make the playoffs, if Pleasant Valley could knock off Donahoe, how could they? Well,
right now, Pleasant Valley is a team that can score runs. And that's the problem that Donahoe's having right now. I have to feel like they've got enough guys still in this program that that have been successful in the last 4 or 5 years that they're going to get it figured out. But scoring runs has been a problem so far this season for Donahoe and Pleasant Valley's. You see them score double-digit runs a whole lot of games, and so I think they're going to have to. Donahoe's going to have to find a way to get more runs across the plate and try to tame Pleasant Valley's bats.
All right, let's talk about Welborn and Weaver. I mean, again, Piedmont's they're run rolling every game. So, but for Coach Harper's team, I think he's 7 8th graders on the varsity team, and for JD Phillips' team, look, they might be 5-11. I think's their record right now, but this team has not made the playoffs since 2017, which was my brother's senior year. Coach Phillips is in his second full season as the head coach. And they've won 5 games. They've already swept Sachs. They won a game against Jacksonville Christian Academy, won a game against B.B. Comer. Yesterday, against Pleasant Valley, jumped on them 3-0, tied it up 4-4 in the 6th, and then just lost 5-4. And I think they had at least 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6, Joe, base running miscues, where it was either a pickoff, runner getting out still in second. So they're hitting the ball, they're scoring runs, Welborn is, compared to previous years. When you look at them and Weaver, and again, I don't want to be a homer here, but I do kind of think Welborn's going to pull out and get the 2 right there. But when that comes down to that series and the youth of Weaver and Welborn, have been struggling the past 6, 7 years, what do you look at to be the difference in that series?
Well, I think with Welborn, when I last saw them in person, it was in the county tournament. And I've been following them through the box scores since then. And, the thing, it's like you talked about, it was base running errors one game. When I saw them, there were a bunch of fielding errors, right? And it looks to me, monitoring them through the box scores, that they're starting to clean things up a little bit. And that's something, you know, when you have a young team, you just got to develop through the course of a season. And you know, Weaver obviously is younger, and they're competitive. They fight hard. That impressed me in the county tournament when I saw them play. Is, you know, they don't know how young they are. It seemed like I felt like they kind of showed themselves to be competitive. So I think that's going to be a really competitive series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great one. Could go 3 games. And then I think that's kind of most of the teams that are in a position to potentially make the playoffs. Maybe update us on Faith Christian. I'm not as up to speed on them, to be completely honest with you, in terms of where they're at in their area play. I
think, well, I just saw earlier, I think they might have gotten their game in today, and I think they beat Raglan. Okay. I'd have to look again, but you know, that's another team I've seen play once, and you know, that area. Jacksonville Christian, right? And Raglan is in that bunch.
Appalachians, you know, they're obviously defending state champs, so they locked that up. But one of them trying to sneak in, I guess, there.
Yeah, I think they're certainly competitive to be a playoff team.
Yeah, all right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk strictly Calhoun County softball tournament. We showed you the seeds last week, but me and Joe's going to kind of walk back through those, look at where things are out on the softball side, and then maybe a little quick preview, not a large preview, of the Calhoun County track, golf, and soccer tournaments that are next week. So, hey, don't go away. We'll be right back as we continue on the Locker Room, presented by Ted's Floors and Beyond.
Ted's Floors and Beyond is excited to introduce our all-new outdoor living collection. Have you ever dreamed of elevating or even creating an outdoor living space, whether it be for grilling, lounging, playing, entertaining, or just winding down? Our quality tile and stone, combined with our expert craftsmanship, will no doubt create unforgettable outdoor moments with family and friends, while also enhancing the beauty and value of your home. Call us today.
For metal buildings in Alabama and the Southeast, Waldrop Manufacturing is your one-stop source. A Waldrop metal building provides the coverage and protection your investments need. They specialize in carports, RV covers, portable buildings, and storage buildings. Stop paying rent for storage. With Waldrop's price per foot, you can actually save money by buying straight from the manufacturer. Waldrop buildings are guaranteed because Waldrop manufactures buildings with U.S. steel right here in Calhoun County. Waldrop Manufacturing, serving the entire Southeast. Give them a call today. For over 60 years, Oxford Lumber has been servicing our area, and our customer service has always been our main focus. Our customer service is what sets us apart from anyone else. From the moment you enter, our highly trained staff will treat you like family.
To enthusiastically provide total customer satisfaction within a positive and self-fulfilling employee relations environment. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or at oxfordlumber.com.
Since 1993, WM Grocery has been a major part of our local community. WM offers the very best in fresh produce and an outstanding meat department. WM also has many local products not found anywhere else and fresh sushi every day. If you need an event catered, come see Mrs. K at any WM store. Curbside pickup is also available for your online grocery orders. Be sure to download the WM app for all the deals of the week and shopper rewards. Go check them out today at any of their locations.
We take pride in our community and appreciate your business.
Welcome back into the Locker Room, presented by Ted's Floors and Beyond. I'm Namath Pitts. We are joined by Joe Medley from EA Sports Today. Joe, everyone knows you, but let's just start. For anyone that's not familiar for some reason with EA Sports Today, why don't you just kind of tell everybody about what you do and how they can find you?
I'm East Alabama Sports Today Facebook page, easportstoday.com. I've been there, took it over from Al Muskowitz, built something with that and gave it, staying power. And I took it over in January of 2023. And pretty much, I haven't, you don't want to mess with a good thing. I've tried to bring a few little touches to it and try to give the site a little bit more voice. I write columns sometimes. I have some background doing that in newspapers, and I've tried to bring things like, I'm a voter on the state poll and doing all county teams, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I really haven't changed a whole lot with it. And it's been a fun first year. Weeks like next week, it's obviously very challenging when you're a one-man staff, but you find ways to get by and get it done. And I've really appreciated all of our readers and all the feedback, and it's been great.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you, man, all you do for our area. I appreciate you. You're the guy that on Mondays I'm like, all right, what's going on this week? Go to Joe's page, or you're looking to see what's happening. For me, we try to create local content, but sometimes it takes using guys like you, not just to see, hey, what's going on. Joe may have something out there that I haven't heard about yet. Like I'll go to a signing and Joe's going to be there. He's already heard about it some way, somehow. Somebody's already reached out to him. But Joe, one thing we do believe in is being open about our faith. That's one thing that we're very open about with East Alabama Now. And you look at how God took you from the Star to EA Sports Today, and you go, it was a God thing. And I've seen you say that before, because you and Al, you didn't always see eye to eye necessarily, and we try not to. I try not to. We don't always respect every I mean, what I'm trying to say is, you respect people in this industry even if you don't always like them. And for you and Al, you may not have always been like buddies, but when the time came, he knew who was going to be the best person for this. Joe Medley.
Well, it was, that relationship status, it's complicated. Al and I worked together for a long time at the Star. His desk was always right next to mine. We had a good rapport when he was at the Star. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of, obviously the newspapers are having tough times right now. Yeah, and Al caught the short end of that stick in 2014. And had a lot of residual feelings about that, and I think that came across sometimes in what you kind of sensed publicly between us. But it was whenever we would be together in the same place, and all that stuff would be aside, we would talk like we used to talk when our desks were next to each other.
Yeah.
So it was always there, and two, I would like to say in my first month and a half at East Alabama Sports Today, he was still working here. I started and then he left February 28th, and during that time I feel like we got back to a better place. So, I do believe that this was a God-led thing. I go back to my bad day in the newspaper industry in 2017 when they eliminated the columnist position, and that was my destination job. That was the thing that I had spent my whole career working toward and working to maintain, and when that wound up on the chopping floor, that really hurt me. But because of the capacity I slid into, it put me in a position to deepen connections in areas that helped me get this job.
Absolutely.
So I've kind of been able to connect those dots and see exactly what you're talking about there.
And to clarify, what I was trying to say is there was a level of respect, obviously, from Al to you, but also it was just all God's plan, man, to see how he took that and then obviously put you in that position, which I know has only benefited you and your family. So, Joe, let's talk about what we're going to be basically focused on next week, and that's the Calhoun County softball tournament. Obviously, Alexandria pulled in the 1 seed, Coach Muncher, and White Plains is the 2 seed. They've played a couple times this year. The one game White Plains won was kind of close, but the other two Alexandria won were not so close. So there's been, I would say, a level of separation between Alexandria and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and I think with Alexandria, they have such a great lineup, and White Plains does too. But up and down the line, you've got people that are going to put the ball in play, and several that can put it out of play.
Yeah.
And White Plains is the same way. I think with Alexandria, pitching has kind of been the thing they've been trying to develop this year, and lately Presley Slayton has been on a real tear in the circle. She had a great day in Gulf Shores yesterday, and then, White Plains, obviously, you have Leighton Arnold. And in this whole softball discussion, let's not forget that Piedmont is the defending champion.
That's right, and they're the number 3 seed, and that's what I was about to ask you, is for White Plains to have an opportunity to play Alexandria, they're going to have to go through Rachel Smith and the Piedmont Bulldogs, who are very good with her daughter on the mound. So talk about Piedmont, man.
Yeah, they got most of their team back from the team that won the county tournament last year. Obviously, they lost Emma Grace Todd and Jenna Calvert, and so they did lose a couple of good players. But they got Savannah Smith back, and a lot of that lineup. The Brothers Sisters, which is something I just love to say, the Brothers Sisters. But Kayla and Casey have really been tearing it up this year at the plate. And last year, the last 3 teams that played on the last day were Piedmont, White Plains, and Alexandria. I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen again this year, although you got to look at Oxford and Ohatchee as teams that could be competitive to break into that mix.
Now, I'm telling you guys, Joe did not know what I was going to say before we came on. You just keep transitioning right into what I was about to ask you. Ohatchee, Coach Poe's team, that's probably the biggest surprise this season.
They're a team that's been developing. As you look up and down their lineup, those are players that have. It seems like they've been in their lineup forever, and they've kind of hit some of their peak years. Players like Savannah Reeves, for example. That's a name I've seen in Ohatchee box scores forever, and then Brianna Martin has been a real power stick in that lineup this year, and Alana Fitch is another really good player. It seems like they've really put it together. They're a team that's been developing, and this year they got again some kids that have been in the program for a while hitting their peak, and some other ones that are coming through for them.
Joe, it's not very often that you see Oxford seated lower than 3, 2, 4 in any sport. But the softball team's the 5 seed, and they're the 5 seed. Now, Ohatchee is improved, Piedmont is good, Alexandria, White Plains are certainly good, but can you recall the last time that Oxford, maybe it was last season, I don't know, I'm asking an honest question because typically Oxford's always at the top. Can you recall a time where they've been seated 5 or lower?
I can't recall one. And I think, when the seeding meeting happened, Oxford was 0-1 against the county, which I don't know if they've played anybody in the county since then, but they played one game against Alexandria and lost 6-0. So it's kind of hard to know exactly how they might do against the other county competition that they'll face in the tournament. When you consider you got a coach in Wendy McKibben who might be in the Calhoun County Sports Hall of Fame one day.
Absolutely.
And 2 college signees, and Ashlyn Burns and Berkeley Mooney, who just had their signing ceremony yesterday.
Yep.
You can't count them out. And so I think it's going to be a pretty competitive tournament, and you might see some surprises in terms of who's the final 3, playing, who's playing to see who's going to play the team that hasn't lost yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's going to be, we might see a surprise or 2 in there.
Very interesting on this next one, Pleasant Valley. I talked to Coach Bryant back during volleyball season. His wife, Dana Bryant, obviously won a state championship volleyball. And he told me, he said, this team got the team to win a state championship. But if you look at the box scores and look at how they've played so far this season, Joe, they've been kind of like
they've struggled
Alexandria.
recently.
They are not playing on all, they're not hitting all cylinders. So for Pleasant Valley, the talent's certainly there. How do they kind of get consistency down the stretch? Not just to try to pull an upset in the county tournament, but to make a push for a state championship.
You just got to have that moment where things click and you start to get hot. They have the lineup to do it. I mean, you look up and down that lineup again. You got Lily Henry in there, Madison Cromer. Mm-hmm. I like to call her Homer Cromer because she can jack it out. And so Gracie Ward's another one that has power. And so they can do it. It's just getting it going. And they've got most of the kids back, from that team that went to state last year and was competitive last year. I think they went 2-2 at state, if memory serves right. So that they don't. Rebecca Ganaway obviously was a big loss for them, but they've got again a lot of those kids back. So I have to feel like they're going to get it figured out before too long.
All right, let's look at the seeds 7 through 12. Let's look at 7 through 13. And Joe, we're just going to quickly look at this. Jacksonville 7, Weaver 8, Welber 9, Anniston 10. How about Anniston 10 over Sachs, Jacksonville Christian, Faith Christian? Coach Vinson's team at Welborn struggled a little bit this year. Ashley's first year at Jacksonville, Fulmer at Weaver, they're starting to get it going. Kinley Fulmer is starting to hit her stride. Looking at 7 through 13, if one of these teams was going to pull some upsets, who do you think it would be?
Either Jacksonville or Weaver. I think you mentioned Kinley Fulmer. I think they've won 3 out of their last 4, if memory serves, and she's just been absolutely on a tear in the circle. I think 50 some odd strikeouts.
She had 18 strikeouts the other day in one game. That's 6 full innings of strikeouts.
And I think a little bit over 50 in 3 games, which is amazing. So she's getting it figured out. Whenever you have a good pitcher who's pitching well, you're a threat to beat anybody, and that's kind of the nature of softball. And then Jacksonville, their first year under Gary Atchley, he's bringing Gary Atchley kind of enthusiasm there, and they've got a couple of young kids that are starting to. I noticed yesterday they were big for them yesterday. I don't think they've hit their high this year yet, and maybe they could possibly get somebody in the tournament.
And one thing to keep an eye on with Jacksonville is they're moving to 5A next year. And I asked Coach Ashley about this. You go from White Plains, Cleveland County, and Anniston to Lincoln and St. Clair County. Lincoln's always a good softball program, but you got to feel like you probably size up just as good in that area as you do in your current one with White Plains and Cleveland County and Anniston. So, Joe, let's transition just quickly, just kind of touching on these. We're not going to go in depth about them. Let's start with golf. That championship will be Tuesday. Day 1's Monday. Day 2's Tuesday at Pine Hill. Sawyer Edwards seems to be the front runner for the boys individual-wise. You'd have to imagine their boys are probably the favorite. Alexandria girls and White Plains have had a little bit of a rivalry going, but they played earlier in the tournament. Alexandria beat them by, I think, like 40 strokes. So I feel like Coach Kiker's girls are the favorite in the girls, and then Coach Randall's boys probably the out front runner for the boys.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way this year, and at least for the team titles. Sawyer Edwards, I think, is probably your front runner on the boys' side. Isabel Rogers from White Plains might be the front runner on the girls' side. She had a great summer this year. She was the Alabama Junior Golf Association, I believe, Player of the Year for her age group and in the off-season circuit. So they're looking like the top two individuals, and then Alexandria's girls look like the top team on the girls' side this year. White Plains, maybe by a significant margin on the boys' side.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And Isabel Rogers is really good. Comes from a great family. She's a great person. I've had the opportunity to actually, have her in my youth group before, and she's just an awesome person. So, all right, let's look at track and field. This is one that you could go a couple different ways with a couple different people. You got to like Con and whatever event she's going to be in. But overall, as a team, Oxford, Anniston, Weaver, Ohatchee, I mean, there's a couple teams that could win this thing.
Oxford boys and girls have won it each of the last 2 years, and then Oxford's boys, I think, have won it 5 years in a row, if memory serves. I think you have to look at them as the team to beat on both sides of that. I think Oxford's girls are probably their nearest competition would be Alexandria typically. Okay. And then on the boys' side, Anniston's won back-to-back Class 4A state championships in track. So they're obviously a threat to go out there and get some points, but Oxford won it by a pretty significant margin last year, and so that you have to think of them as the favorite going into it. And then, like you mentioned, Madden Con, I'm always amazed at somebody that can go out and run the 1600, the 3200, the 800, which I assume, and probably a relay too. She's just a special athlete. And then one of my favorite events to watch at the county every year is the pole vault. We have a real history of pole vaulters around here that go on and do great things on the state level and compete collegiately too. So that's going to be fun to watch. And it seems like we always have some that are a threat to break the county record.
All right, Joe, 2 more things, and that's going to do it for us today. Let's talk about soccer. I mean, no one's going to beat Donahoe's girls. I'm throwing the rat poison out. Ain't nobody going to eat it. So nobody's going to beat the Donahoe girls. So if they stay healthy, this team's probably going to win 1A through 3A. Don't you think so? I
think they're a threat. They've gotten there a couple times. They've been knocking on the door, and it looks like they're banging on it this year. Erin Turley, I think, is healthy based on what I can tell. She fought a lot of nagging injuries the last 2 years, and then Anna Kate Wallace is in the program this year. She transferred in from Talladega, became eligible this year. So they've got 2 strikers there that can beat you, and then a lot around them that's pretty good. Zoe Christopher is another really good player for them that's a threat to score, and again, a lot of girls on that team have been doing it a long time. There are still several girls on that team that played the last time they went and were state runner-up. So I think they're a threat to do that, and certainly I see them dominating in the county. Last year it was a little bit closer deal between them and Oxford. Oxford had a few kids that graduated, like Sawyer Brooks and Reagan White. So I think the Donahoe's girls are probably significantly above the rest of the field on that side. And then on the boys' side, there wasn't a county tournament last year because there weren't enough boys teams. They had the Isaac Crook Invitational, and Donahoe won that. They beat Oxford in the final 2-1. But Donahoe's boys obviously lost some guys to graduation. Their coach from last year is now coaching the girls, and because his daughter's on the team. And so Drew Williamson was one of the kids that graduated that scored a lot of goals for them. But so I have to think Oxford's pretty strong on the boys' side.
All right, Joe, you are part of the Sports Writers rankings. You get to vote on where you think everybody sizes up. So based off of...
Hate on me if you don't like it.
No. I know you're voting our teams probably more than the other ones outside this area are. I feel like people outside of our area never give this area as much respect, yet we've been really good in a lot of sports consistently for a long time. But looking down the stretch, past county tournament next week, baseball, I'm not asking you to make a prediction, but obviously Piedmont's in 3A, Alexandria's in 5A, Oxford's in 6A. If somebody's going to win a state championship, who do you think has the best chances in baseball?
That's tough. I'm going to say Oxford right now because they are a defending champion and they got a lot of kids back from that team. I lost a lot, but still have a lot back that were pretty good players last year. Alexandria would probably be next on my list to consider that way, and if they, can find a way to score a few more runs, maybe in a tie there. Piedmont, they've got, obviously they've lost a generational player from last year, and they're trying to find ways to get what he produced back, and both on the mound and at the plate, and they're a little bit different team this year, I think, in the way they play than they have been, but they're always competitive to get deep in the playoffs.
All right, softball, you got Alexandria in 5A, which is tough. White Plains is in 4A. Piedmont in 3A. Piedmont looks a little open. Looking at softball, who do you think's got the best chance to win state championship if somebody was going to?
Right now, I would have to say Alexandria, just because their lineup up and down the thing, and of course Piedmont, they're hungry. They've been there 3 years in a row now. The first 3 times that their program's been there, on that in the state tournament, the fast pitch state tournament, and they're going to get in that door. They've been beaten on it. They're going to get in that door eventually, and this would be the year to do it when you have a player like Savannah Smith and the players they have around her. So I think they're competitive for that. If White Plains gets hot, they were in the state tournament last year, and that was the first time in 4 years for them. And again, they got a lineup, and they got a lot of kids that can hit. And Leighton Arnold and Callie Richardson are all a threat to knock it out, and they've got some others. And if they're another team, if they get hot at the right time, I think has a chance. But if I had to pick one that has the best chance right now, I'd have to pick Alexandria.
All right, you heard it from Joe himself. I'm going to have to agree with you. I've went on record and said I think Alexandria boys are going to get it done this year. I think they're going to bring one back for Coach Welch. And then in softball, I agree with you 100%. I think Alexandria, White Plains, I think if Coach Bryant's team can find their groove in 2A, I think they could bring home a state championship 2A. And I certainly think Rachel Smith's Dadeville looks a little down this year. Beulah looks a little down this year. I think it's probably more wide open than it's been the past couple of years for them. So, hey, Joe, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, bud.
And that's going to do it for us today on The Locker Room. Hey, tomorrow we're going to be joined by the director of Cheaha Valley FCA, Cole Limbaugh. He's going to join us in studio. We're going to talk about Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We're going to talk about how you can help support them. They're going to be very active during the state baseball and softball tournament. They got a summer camp coming up. We'll be joined tomorrow with Cole Limbaugh and be very open about our faith. So I hope you'll join us back here tomorrow for that on The Locker Room. Other than that, I'm Namath Pitts. Have a great evening. Stay dry. God bless. And we'll see you back here tomorrow on The Locker Room, presented by Ted's Floors and Beyond.